Welcome to Zoe Stories. They made me live as a girl to join their group. My name is Max, and I'm 19 years old. I've always been the quiet type, the kind of guy who blends into the background. Growing up in a small town, I never really felt like I fit in. I wasn't athletic or popular, and I spent more time reading or drawing than hanging out with friends. It wasn't that I didn't want to belong, I did.
But I just didn't know how.
Then everything changed when I got to college. I met Alex and his group of friends, confident, outgoing, and constantly surrounded by people. They had something I didn't, an effortless charisma that made everyone want to be around them. And for some strange reason, Alex decided to take an interest in me. At first, I thought it was a joke, but then he told me they had a test to see if I could join their group. Here's where it got strange. Alex said that if I wanted to be part of their circle, I'd have to do something completely unexpected, live as a girl for an entire week. At first, I thought it was a prank, a joke. But the more they pushed, the more I realized they weren't kidding. This was the price of belonging. It was a strange, terrifying, and tempting offer. On one hand, I could finally be part of something I desperately wanted. On the other hand, I could lose everything that made me. But, in a way, this challenge might be my only shot at breaking out of my shell. It was an opportunity, but it was also a risk I wasn't sure I was willing to take. I remember the moment Alex laid out the challenge so clearly. We were sitting in the dimly lit corner of the campus cafe, surrounded by the usual buzz of students talking, laughing, and clinking coffee cups. But for me, it felt like everything went silent the moment he said, "If you really want to be part of our group, you have to live as a girl for a week. No exceptions." At first, I thought I heard him wrong. Wait, what? My voice cracked, disbelief flooding my chest. I stared at Alex, trying to read his face, trying to figure out if he was just messing with me. But the serious look in his eyes made it clear. This was real. My stomach churned as a whirlwind of emotions hit me all at once. Fear, confusion, and an odd sense of excitement. Could I do it? Could I really live as a girl for an entire week? The idea felt absurd, like something straight out of a bizarre dream. But at the same time, a part of me was drawn to it. There was a part of me that had always wondered what it would be like to step out of my comfort zone, to be someone else, even if just for a little while. The pros were tempting. Finally, I could break free from the life I'd always lived in the shadows, maybe even gain some confidence. Being part of Alex's group could mean friendships, connections, and a whole new world I'd never experienced. I'd always wanted to belong, to feel accepted for who I was, but I'd never known how to get there. But the risks, they were overwhelming. What would people think? What would my family say? The thought of walking around campus dressed as a girl, being the center of attention, whether good or bad, made my heart race with panic. What if it wasn't just the week? What if it changed me forever? My mind was a battlefield. My head screamed, "Don't do it," while my heart whispered, "What if this is your chance?" I couldn't make sense of it all. Every second that passed seemed to deepen the pit in my stomach, yet somehow, a strange flicker of hope glimmered in the dark. What if this was my chance to finally live a life I'd always wanted, even if it meant stepping into the unknown? The days after Alex's challenge felt like a blur of tension and uncertainty. I couldn't stop thinking about it, and every time I tried to concentrate on something else, my mind kept drifting back to the question, should I do it? Should I really live as a girl for an entire week? I decided to talk to my best friend, Sarah. If there was anyone who might understand, it was her. She'd been there for me through thick and thin, and even though she didn't know about the struggles I had with my identity, I thought she might give me the perspective I needed. We met up at our favorite diner, and I wasted no time getting to the point. So, Alex gave me this challenge. He said, I need to live as a girl for a week if I want to join their group. She raised an eyebrow, clearly caught off guard. Wait, what? Live as a girl? Seriously? I nodded, feeling the weight of her disbelief.
Yeah.
It sounds crazy, right? But there's something about it. I don't know. It feels like it could be a way to break out of my shell, you know? Sarah leaned back in her chair, her fingers tapping nervously on the table. I get it. You want to fit in, but this? It just sounds extreme. I couldn't argue with that. It was extreme, and the more I thought about it, the more it felt like a huge risk. I don't know if I'm strong enough for this, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. What if people judge me? What if I can't go back to who I was before? Her expression softened. Look, I'm not gonna lie. People will talk. You'll get stares, some laughs, maybe even some ridicule. But you're strong. You know that, right? I hesitated, the fear creeping up again. What if I'm not? She reached across the table, giving my hand a reassuring squeeze. Then you'll figure it out. But you don't have to do this for anyone but yourself. If you're doing it to fit in, then it's not worth it. But if you want to do this to prove something to yourself, then you've got to trust your instincts. Her words made me think, but they didn't ease the storm in my head. When I got back to my dorm, I couldn't shake the feeling of being pulled in two directions. A part of me wanted to take the leap, to see where it would lead, but another part was terrified of the consequences. I didn't know what would happen if I followed through, but I had a sinking feeling that it might change me forever. The next day, Alex found me again. He must have sensed the hesitation in my eyes. You haven't given me an answer yet, he said, voice laced with impatience. You either do this or you don't. You're in or out, no half measures. I looked at him, suddenly aware of how much was at stake. This wasn't just about the challenge anymore. It was about who I was becoming, who I wanted to be. But I still wasn't sure. Should I do it? Should I risk everything for the chance to be someone else, even if just for a week? Alex's challenge hung in the air like an unresolved question, and I had no idea which direction I would take next. The days dragged on, each one heavy with indecision. I could feel the weight of the choice pressing down on me, a constant thrum in my chest. The more I thought about it, the more it seemed like this challenge was a test, one I had to pass, not just for Alex and his group, but for myself. I had always played it safe, sticking to what was expected, what was comfortable. But was that the person I really wanted to be? Every time I walked past a mirror, I wondered what it would feel like to step into a different version of myself. What if I could walk through the world as someone else, someone freer, more confident? But then the doubts crept in. What would happen if I failed? What would my friends think of me? What if I couldn't handle the attention, the whispers, the judgment? As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I could feel the pull of the decision. It wasn't just about clothes or makeup, it was about who I was, who I wanted to become. I couldn't shake the feeling that this challenge was my chance to confront everything I had been hiding from. If I backed out now, I would never know what could have been. I grabbed my phone, hands shaking, and sent the message. Okay, I'm in. The moment I hit send, a flood of anxiety washed over me. The consequences of my decision were clear now. I would have to go through with it, face the embarrassment, the discomfort. But I also knew that this was the moment that would set everything in motion. Whatever happened after this, I couldn't turn back. The morning of the transformation arrived with an unexpected sharpness. The air felt heavier, charged with anticipation, as if the whole world knew something was about to change. I had barely slept the night before, my mind racing through the endless possibilities of what was to come. Today wasn't just another day, it was the first day of the rest of my life, and I had no idea how to feel about that. I met Alex in the parking lot outside a small boutique, its windows lined with the kind of clothes I had only ever seen in glossy magazines. My stomach knotted with nerves as he greeted me with a knowing smile, his confidence radiating. He had done this countless times, I could tell. For him, this was just another step in a game he knew well. For me, it was everything. Ready? He asked, his voice a mix of excitement and teasing. I nodded, trying to steady my breath. My hands were clammy, but I couldn't show fear.
Not now.
Not when I was this close. Inside the store, I was immediately surrounded by a whirlwind of fabrics, colors, and textures. Everything felt foreign, and yet there was something exhilarating about it. Alex led me to a changing room, where I stood, staring at the clothes laid out before me. Each item was a piece of a puzzle I didn't quite understand yet. A black dress, heels that seemed impossibly tall, a wig that looked nothing like my hair. Go ahead, Alex urged. Try them on. I hesitated, but stepped into the dress. The soft fabric hugged my body in a way I wasn't used to, molding to my frame with a delicate touch. The heels felt strange under my feet, unfamiliar and unsteady, as though my body wasn't meant to walk in them. But I stood taller than I ever had, my posture correcting itself as I adjusted to the unfamiliar weight. It was uncomfortable, but in a strange way, it felt like power, like I was finally stepping into someone else's life, someone braver, someone who could own this. The transformation wasn't just physical. As I adjusted the wig, carefully brushing it to sit just right, I could feel a shift inside me. The nervous energy morphed into something else, a kind of quiet strength. The man who had walked into that store wasn't the same person who walked out of the changing room. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I almost didn't recognize the reflection staring back at me. The face was familiar, but the eyes, those weren't mine. They looked different, more confident, more alive. I could feel the weight of the decision settling in. The reflection wasn't a joke. It wasn't just a costume. It was me, somehow. It was everything I could become. But it wasn't perfect. There were moments of doubt. My mind screamed at me to rip it all off, to walk away before it was too late. But then I would take a deep breath, steady myself, and remind myself that this was it, that I had come this far and there was no turning back now. There were things I had to face, not just in the mirror, but in the world around me. I had to learn how to walk, how to hold myself, how to be someone else for just a little while. The first step was the hardest, but it wasn't the last. The night of the event had arrived, and my heart pounded in my chest like a drum, each beat louder than the last. I stood in front of the mirror, my reflection now an unfamiliar stranger. The dress clung to me like it was meant for this body, the heels forcing my posture into something more poised, more feminine than I had ever been. But tonight wasn't just about the clothes. It was the moment of truth. The moment I had to face the reality of who I was becoming. I had spent the past few days wrestling with my thoughts. At first, it felt like a game, a dare, something that I could pull off for a laugh and then return to normal. But now, as I stood there in the soft glow of the mirror light, that illusion had shattered. This wasn't just a costume, a temporary escape. This was who I was becoming. And the fear and uncertainty that had once held me back had now turned into something else, something I couldn't quite name. "Are you ready?" Alex's voice broke through my thoughts, pulling me back into the present. I turned to face him, finding him standing there with a grin on his face, as if this was nothing more than a casual night out. But I saw the subtle tension in his eyes, the slight hesitation as he looked me over, assessing. "I don't know if I am," I admitted, my voice shaky, uncertain. "You've got this," he said, but his words didn't feel as convincing as they should have. The underlying pressure of everything we were about to do weighed heavily on both of us. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out of the room and into the unknown. The others were already waiting. The group had gathered at the bar, their eyes lighting up when they saw me walk in. I could feel their stares, the weight of their judgment and expectation. But I couldn't turn back now. As I approached them, my heels clicking loudly against the floor, a wave of realization crashed over me. This wasn't just about fitting in anymore, it was about finding a place for myself in a world that had never quite understood who I was. The facade I had put up as someone playing a role was crumbling, and in its place, a new version of me was emerging. The first step was a silent acknowledgement, the shift in the room as they accepted me, the way their eyes softened, the way they greeted me. But there was still an unspoken tension. There was no going back. This moment, this night, it was defining everything that came after. "Welcome to the group," Alex said, his voice low, almost as if he understood the depth of what had just shifted. And in that moment, I realized that this wasn't just about becoming someone else for them. It was about discovering who I could truly be. But as I stood there, the weight of that realization hit me. I wasn't just pretending anymore. This transformation had changed me in ways I hadn't yet understood. The weeks that followed that night were a blur of self-discovery. What had once felt like a game, a temporary costume, became an integral part of me. The physical transformation was undeniable. My posture, the way I carried myself, how my voice shifted in different situations. But it wasn't just my appearance that had changed. Inside, I felt something unlocking, a new sense of freedom and acceptance I had never known before. I had faced my fears, my insecurities, and come out the other side more confident, more connected to myself than ever. I realized that the person I had been hiding, the one I thought I needed to suppress, wasn't a stranger or an act.
She was a part of me all along.
And as I started to embrace that part of myself, the world around me seemed to shift as well. The group I had once feared judging me had become a source of support, and I found myself growing closer to people who saw me for who I truly was, not just the outward facade. There was still uncertainty ahead, still moments where I wasn't sure how others would react or if this transformation would be permanent. But for the first time, I didn't feel like I had to hide behind anything. I had embraced my true self, and that was the most empowering thing I could have ever done. As I walked through life, I realized this journey wasn't just about fitting in with the group, it was about fitting into my own skin. And no matter what the future held, I knew I had the strength to face it, to be whoever I needed to be. The story wasn't over, but I had finally begun to write it on my own terms. Thank you for joining us on another captivating journey through Zoe's stories. Remember to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a tale. Until next time, keep exploring, keep imagining, and keep believing in the magic of storytelling. See you in the next chapter.